Will Work for Patients, episode 47.
We did significant numbers of workshops for Lockheed Martin, that little company that makes weapon systems for the U.S. and everybody else. We had 48 people at the first talk. 23 of them asked if they could come in as a patient because of the way the talk was delivered. In a matter of about 16 weeks, I went from 130 visits a week to 303 visits a week.
Wow.
And it went from there. Hired an associate, continued to practice, started lecturing in different areas, started teaching at the colleges, doing post-grad work, when after practicing for almost 30 years, decided if I can figure out a way to help other chiropractors see 300 people a week, or whatever they decided, that I could 10x or greater the exposure of the public to chiropractic. Doctors have got to understand. They have got to give value above and beyond what people expect.
What up, Will Workers? Frank Sardella here, and I have got a humdinger of an episode on tap for you just now. Did you ever aspire to work with corporate employees? How about sports teams? What about children? How about tripling in size or even growing just a little bit? Well, my guest today has done all of that and more, even instructing at college level. 30 years in practice and a more impressive CV than you've seen in a while. And only then did he head out on the road to help all the other docs achieve the same level, all in the name of branding chiropractic and bringing it front and center into the very mainstream we have only dreamed of carrying it. Find out how he resurrected the dead subject of posture and made it relevant even at pro sports levels and for corporate employees to boot. So sit up, pipe down, and grab a hold of something as you find out the keys to doing it all yourself in your practice and heal your community. Today's episode is entitled Maximum Performance Builds Practice Muscle. Here we go.
Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Will Work for Patients, a free advice podcast dedicated to help chiropractors get on purpose and grow their practices. Get ready to tune in and turn up the volume of your practice marketing. And now, turning up the volume on his mic, big-time chiropractic advocate and your host, here is Frank Sardella.
All right, and welcome back to yet another episode of Will Work for Patients. I'm so glad to be back, and so glad to be back in the studio. And we've been cranking out episodes again. If you haven't noticed, we were on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're hot and heavy on the episodes lately. I'm excited to bring you another guest. I'm going to get right to it today. I'm going to skip a lot of the preliminaries because I have a guest I'm really super excited to bring you. I know I say that all the time, but this particular one has something innovative. I love these docs who are innovators and who are bringing stuff to the profession. And this doc is a veteran of the profession. He put in nearly 30 years in private practice before he got into innovating, and I want to bring his innovations to you. And I'm already behind what he's doing. I've been endorsing it all over the place. But before we get to it, I do want to give a couple of special shout-outs to those who are making today's episode possible. Do you want to steadily draw quality new patients who convert, increase your case average, patient compliance, and referrals? Well, I'm going to tell you how to achieve it with an additional revenue stream to follow. Using doctor-developed scientific technology, Nutrient Body Sculpt delivers micronutrients, providing mental clarity, relaxation, aesthetic body contouring, more energy, vitality, and a desire to continue wellness care. All while you get 1,000% better ROI, case average, and patient compliance, a modality your patients won't want loved ones to live without, nor should you live without. It even complements nutrition, weight, and fat loss programs you already do. When I saw what it did to someone I know, I took notice. Clients and listeners have been jumping on board ever since. Here's what I recommend. Call 310-905-0800 or visit nutrientbodysculpt.com for more info. Mention Will Work for Patients for offers that will save you big, and even a few freebies I'm throwing in. All to help you build the wellness-based practice you always wanted. I know this can take you there. nutrientbodysculpt.com. Call 310-905-0800. In practice, it's hard enough to garner any online presence without breaking the bank and the practice in the process, and getting online reviews can be even more frustrating, especially trying to get enough to outweigh that one bad one. It's inevitable. Social media is today's word of mouth. Well, I want to tell you about something called DC Marketing Products developed by Dr. Jerry Dreesen, practicing chiropractor, electronic marketing genius, and former guest right here on Will Work for Patients. Well, Doc developed many marketing assets. My favorite are his chiropractic review videos, which comprise a system of exploiting your positive online reviews, getting them widely read, and creating way more bang for your online buck. Featuring a professional spokesperson, the most unbelievable thing about these premium review videos is their surprisingly low price tag, one of the best marketing values out there for practices. So visit dcmarketingproducts.com/podcast for a special offer where Doc will comprise and publish one of these free for newbies just for being a listener of Will Work for Patients. Find out how to get great mileage out of your best online reviews. Visit dcmarketingproducts.com/podcast now. My guest today was actually a guest on one of my clients' podcasts that I executive produce, and I actually got very interested in what his guest was talking about, and they were talking about an app that this particular guest developed, and he had been implementing in his practice to great success. I got very, very interested in just listening to the two of them talk, and I got into a conversation or two with this guest afterwards, after the show, reached out to him immediately and said, you know what, your next step is to be on Will Work for Patients for sure. I want to get this out. But he is a consultant to chiros, MDs, PTs in areas of compliance, marketing, business management, billing, and practice integration. So he is a jack of all trades, but not master of none. He's kind of a master of all trades. He was in private practice from 1978 until 2006, so a good, healthy, almost 30 years there. He's a graduate of Northwest College of Chiropractic, now Northwestern Health Sciences University in Bloomington, Minnesota, and a graduate of University of Minnesota as well. He's a certified instructor for chiropractic clinical technology, certified acupuncturist, and in clinical nutrition. He's a former instructor at Northwestern College of Chiropractic, former examiner of the Minnesota State Board of Chiropractic Examiners. Guys, there's more. He was an instructor for the Minnesota Trial Lawyers Association, tying in integration about chiropractic and auto accidents and things like that. He's a founding member of the Chiropractic Occupational Health and Safety Board, Logan College of Chiropractic elective technique instructor for postgraduate education, executive director of a multidisciplinary clinic in Washington, Pennsylvania, out there on the other side of Pennsylvania, out there near Pittsburgh. And he's the developer of something that I want to talk to you about today called Maximum Performance Solutions. And its purpose is to have an app to be able to predict and prevent injuries and thus maximize the individual performance in athletics and enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of employees. Guys, now we're talking corporate here, okay? Employees, including helping people be healthier, happier, more productive, and thus increase the profitability of their employer. Who wouldn't want that? This is something that's spreading rapidly, so I'm going to let him spread the word about it to you. And again, as usual, I'm gushing over my guest here, so let me just shut up and bring him straight to you. So please welcome here to Will Work for Patients, Dr. Gary Fieber. Gary, welcome to the show.
Frank, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, so I'm really pumped about having you here. I know we've been having talks the last couple of weeks, especially since you've been on Dr. Margella's show there. I was really impressed up and down. I hadn't even known your resume at that point. I was impressed with what you have going on now. So you were in private practice. You've done a lot of things. You've instructed, both in private and educational sectors as well. So very impressive resume. But again, very sterile when I read these resumes, these CVs over the air. So I usually like to give my guest a little chance to kind of tell their story from their viewpoint. I would love it if you can sort of enlighten our listeners on what that journey's been from you, from getting out of chiropractic school, going into private practice for all those years, and then how you evolved into innovating. Can you maybe tell a little bit of your story?
I can, actually. I went into chiropractic simply because I had had an amazing experience with it when I was young. I had some significant health issues that traditional medicine, even though they tried, couldn't help. Of course, the chiropractic profession, as a last resort, usually the case, but I learned to use it as a compliment. Mm-hmm. Took care of the problem. That was great. Decided about age 11 I'm going to be a chiropractor. And wow. I ended up becoming one. Got out of school. Interestingly, thought the world would come to my door, but that didn't really go that way because nobody really knows what we do, unfortunately.
Of course.
Practiced quite extensively in a general practice area from like 78 to 93-ish, and then really woke up to the fact that if we do not tell the public what we do, how we do it, and most importantly, why we do it, we're not really going to gain acceptance and gain patient population. So I finally decided, okay, how are we going to do this? What a concept. We started educating our patients. We started doing workshops in the office. And the great thing about it was every patient I had not been to one. So we actually developed a very simple workshop. However, we developed one that required bringing a guest because we were going to teach them how to actually do three things. Number one, they were going to get well faster. Number two, they were going to stay well longer. And number three, they were going to save money on healthcare. Well, we taught them how to do some self-help techniques, but in all honesty, they couldn't reach some of these points, so I asked them to bring a guest that they actually cared enough about that would help them during the week. A couple of sessions, only a couple of minutes. So that worked very well. We had a number of people signed up for that. The first one I did, I had one patient, one guest, not quite as exciting. but in a matter of actually about 16 weeks, I went from 130 visits a week to 303 visits a week.
Wow.
And sustained that. And then I thought, okay, I'm running out of people to talk to by myself. So we started doing workshops in the community, and we went to the corporate world. Now, it's very difficult to get into the corporate world. However, the best place to find businesses to lecture to were the existing patients because most of them were employed.
Yes.
So we ended up doing workshops for, at the time, Northwest Airlines, which became Delta, the state of Minnesota, a number of other big corporations. And what happened was the whole goal of this, and here's where I think people make mistakes. The whole goal of this was to enhance the overall health and wellness, energy, and productivity of the employees. Now, by doing that and having a very specific way to do these talks, the people ended up asking if they could not come in. I remember specifically we did significant numbers of workshops for Lockheed Martin, that little company that makes weapon systems for the U.S. and everybody else. And, we had 48 people at the first talk. 23 of them asked if they could come in as a patient because of the way the talk was delivered. And the talk is delivered just like today, Frank. Doctors have got to understand. They have got to give value above and beyond what people expect. And it went from there. Hired an associate, continued to practice, started lecturing in different areas, started teaching at the colleges, doing post-grad work, and did that till 2006 when, after practicing, as you said, for almost 30 years, decided if I can figure out a way to help other chiropractors see 300 people a week if they want to, or 200, whatever they decided, that I could actually 10x, if you will, or greater, the exposure of the public to chiropractic. And that's what I started to do then, in lecturing in various parts of the country, working with private clients, doing whatever I could to educate people. And we did a lot of talks, I should say, for different businesses. We worked with the profession. We worked with some of the local associations. And I started traveling around the country, got involved with instrument technology, became an instructor for that, again, helping more doctors. And that really led me to the development of something that I was looking for that was simple, and that ended up being my concept of maximum performance solutions. And that really came out of an area that I had worked with in practice originally, which was sports. I had developed a large children's practice, and my goal for that simply was the more kids you get in their practice, you're going to stay with them until they graduate from high school and move away, go to college, but then they come back on the break. So it was always my goal to see kids from the time they were born until the time they either moved away, or went somewhere else. So a huge part of that was sports. We did work with the Minnesota Vikings for quite some time, in addition to college teams, in addition to local high school athletes. And the thing that I found that was interesting, to say the least, amongst all of the people I saw in sports, in regular, quote, general practice, unquote, is posture. And posture seems like it's one of those things that people don't pay any attention to. Your parents yell at you to sit up straight, that sort of thing, stand up straight, walk this way, walk that way. Well, at that point, I was using posture as a guide to the chronic nature of why their problems came back, and we worked very hard to correct them in a simplified manner. Worked very well, didn't think much of it until we started doing consulting, and then I realized that with the research out there in the field today, and not just in chiropractic, but in medicine and sports performance, and a lot of it's been done in Russia and European countries, of course. However, posture has an underlying complicating issue to it in that chiropractors are great at getting people to feel better. They can relieve their symptoms, they can relieve their pain, they can get them back to doing their daily activities, but a lot of times the problem comes back. And what's the underlying issue there? The underlying issue is if posture is not corrected, why? Because there's something causing it to occur.
I just want to say my number one takeaway, Gary, from what you just talked about is how you evolved into finally saying, that I can use the factor of 10x, and honestly, I think it's a lot more, but you finally realized that you can help a lot more if you reach a lot of doctors and help them reach a lot of patients. And that's exactly why I got into this profession and how I answer the question, why didn't you go to chiropractic school, when people find out my story? And as you know, my life got saved by a chiropractor back at the tender age of, 27, when I didn't think I was going to live to see age 30, literally had my life saved. And people say, wow, you're really passionate, you're a great advocate, why didn't you go to chiropractic school? And my answer is, because I don't want to save the world one adjustment at a time. There's nothing wrong with that. We need people to do that, but I'm more the person who wants to get thousands of people who get thousands of people and create the millions and billions and go on from there. So I think that's really impressive. But I also want to talk about a couple of things that you said, a couple of key things. Another parallel that we have, when I talk from my original sort of win with chiropractic and how it saved my life, where you were even younger than I was, age 11. Will Workers, Doc had he had health issues at age 11, got them handled and realized, hey, this is what I want to do with my life. But then went through all those years of school, got to the end of the road, just like everybody does, and hangs that shingle out and goes, where is everybody? And, learn the lesson that the rest of us do, and so on and so forth. But he said he woke up to the fact that if we don't tell the public, and this is like, again, think about it, things are much different now. Imagine back in 1978 up through 1993 when he was talking about, where he realized that, hey, if we don't wake up to the fact that if we don't tell the public this, we're going to be nowhere, So he started innovating, and the whole thing, Gary, I love how you did the bring a guest thing, and I've seen that echoed throughout different types of things people do in the practice. But I love the three things you brought up. I have to tell you, that's quite genius. He said, teaching people not only to bring another person with them, but when they get there, teaching them how to get well faster, how to stay well longer, and how to save money in the process. I mean, that's pure genius. There's something you could take away from this podcast episode right here, and you could probably boom a practice just with that one factor alone. But I want to point out that Gary actually started with one guest at his first workshop. One guest. That was it. But he quickly, in persisting on it and in believing it and really continuing to just push his purpose and really do this, went from 130 to 303 visits. That is persistence if I've ever seen it. And then venturing out into corporate with the airlines and all these different corporations in his area, and talking about enhancing the overall wellness of employees. Gary, I can't tell you how many parallels between you and me. I'm actually one of the pioneers of the corporate wellness company industry, and started as one of the original companies here in New York in the 90s. Nobody was doing it before anyone was really doing it, before corporations really knew to put on these wellness events. I started a company that pioneered that, and now it's a real cutthroat industry. Every corporation is hiring different companies. In fact, a lot of the people with these companies are descendants of my original. It's hilarious to watch, but it is key. And yes, it is going to improve folks' production at in corporations and in work settings and for employers, and it's going to improve their overall well-being as a company when they improve the well-being of their employees. But also you have to realize that it is the hottest, fastest way to spread the word. If you want to spread the word fast, you need to contact groups of people, and there is no larger group of people on the planet than working people. And that is a key that I really want you to take away from this. So much to take away just from your bio, Gary. Thank you. So impressive. And now I want to get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty with you, because I want to talk to you about what you're doing now. That brings us to today, really. And we could go on and on about what you did in practice and all the techniques that you had, but I know that led you into this innovation that we have now that really folds into 21st century technology and also the mindset of millennials who are very app-oriented and driven. And also, is there anything I can do on my own driven? And having other connections than just showing up at a doctor's office 3 times a week as a desirable situation to be in. So can you first tell our listeners what MPS is all about? Maximum Performance Solutions is the product that's your baby right now. So I'm wondering if you can give us just a slight introduction to that, and then we'll get into more questions about what it does. But if you could just give us a sort of a generalized overview, where it came from, what the concept is, and sort of what it is and does.
Great. Not a problem, Frank. Obviously, the whole goal was to reach more people. Everybody today has an app. Everybody has a smartphone. So we decided, okay, what can we do? We created this app, which actually is downloadable, which allows a person to very simply take 4 pictures 90 degrees apart and then a video of themselves walking. Actually, somebody will hold the phone for them. But what happens is they walk away from the camera and toward it. That app is uploaded to our website, our software, and we create a report that is sent back via email to not only the patient, of course, or the person, maybe the non-patient yet, and the doctor that's the actual certified MPS provider in that area. What happens then is that report very simply lays out the deficiencies or the deficits and then gives them the exercises to do, which are detailed out in video built into the app. And that's really what is allowing us to get people more involved in this, both in a sports area for their excitement and their excelling past where they have been stuck, and also the corporate area because of the research that's been done in posture and problems there.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And now I want to really get into like the depth of that. But I mean, Will Workers, right there is so much to just take away from just the fact of what this app really represents. If you look a little deeper into what Doc just said about the innovation, it takes 4 pictures and the person walking toward the thing and the report that it spits out and the exercises it gets them to do. You really have to look a little deeper beyond that to see the true value of this thing, because while that is something that, yes, is desirable, it's also something that, without an app you could probably achieve with somebody to be able to do that. But talk about a new relationship with someone especially, and being able to establish that connection and continue a conversation beyond perhaps 5 minutes. Maybe you met them at a screening or something, somebody who's not even a patient yet, and you want that bridge over to possibly creating a patient relationship with them when it's a little too early to do so now, being able to make this connection and continue the conversation. So I actually love that about that. So tell me, what is the actual, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, exactly how that rolls out in a practice scenario, could you tell me a little bit about what is the goal of this app? Like what was your vision for this to accomplish in a practice setting?
Okay. Absolutely. And Frank, you mentioned screenings, and I know you're an expert at it, which is great because you're helping a lot of these docs in the profession already. And that was one of the reasons I developed this. But really, there's twofold as far as this app goes. Number one, the reason I did it was because I wanted a very simple, easily accessible tool to bring people to doctors' offices. And they know, unfortunately, that even if you're seeing, let's say, a husband or a wife, they have kids, a lot of times it's extremely difficult to get these kids into the practice if, in fact, they don't have symptoms. Our society is still so symptom-based. And if they don't have symptoms, they certainly don't need you, they think. However, 75% of the kids in this country play some form of organized sports. And the money these parents spend on these kids to improve their performance is unbelievable. Actually, $15.3 billion last year. That's cash, not covered by insurance, which is where most of the professions are going. So I thought, okay, how can we get the parents to realize their kids are important and their posture is important? So what happens is the app, because we ask them to follow up, and the excitement about this app is that once people download it and they get an exercise or two, can't wait to submit the second test, which is generally 2 weeks away. You're going to see improvement. We're seeing it in young kids. We're seeing it in middle-aged people, elderly people, and I'll call elderly maybe 20 years older than me, so in their 80s and 90s. But the point is, it allows people to actually want to come to the doctor's office, because we a lot of times will find some additional problems that they didn't even tell the doctor about, because, of course, they didn't think about it. So the doctor now gets to see these people because, number one, we want them to confirm the exact form of the exercise, which are all isometrics, and secondly, evaluate any underlying complicating factors that may be there.
Yeah.
So it brings the public in to the doctor, but it also helps the public become aware of the fact that, yes, posture is just not something you get yelled at for. It's something that can cause significant health issues down the line if you don't deal with them.
Yeah, now that's something that is really something to write home about, actually, because one of the frustrating things in chiropractic right now is how we've gotten away from posture, how posture's been kind of like, I don't know, just growing really stale of late. Not even of late, in just the last decade or two even, where it just seemed like we were very passionate and on purpose about posture, but we just haven't been able to make the connection. I don't know if it's a generational thing or whatever, but we've seemed to have gotten away from it, and somehow you seem to have plugged it back in a very significant way, an interesting way.
Well, you're absolutely right. And to me, posture was such a significant part of, if you will, correcting these problems in chiropractic offices, but it's also a very significant, simple way for the patient to see the improvement. So when they look in the mirror, they see themselves every day. They see their kids every day. They don't even notice the posture. When you point it out in your office, that look, your shoulder's lower here, your foot turns out, your one ear's lower, they go, oh my God, exactly. Well, now the research that shows, and talk about millennials and talk about young kids, posture problems now, especially because of the smartphone generation and the tablet generation. These kids are sitting with their head tucked forward, bent forward all day long. They've even come up with a new illness or disease classification called digital dementia. It's affecting their nervous system in such a negative way. What better way to bring this awareness to these kids, to these parents, so that they can prevent, again, these other problems from getting worse? So posture has been overlooked, and the research, interestingly enough, that's been done on posture in the world, in the business community, has shown, interestingly enough, everything chiropractors have been talking about since the beginning regarding different illnesses and problems that have responded to chiropractic care. Why? Of course, it's the nervous system, but if you don't fix the posture, the irritation is going to come back. So I appreciate you asking me that, because people need to wake up to the fact that this is a very simple way to educate the population about where they can go if they don't deal with it, and how the doctors can improve their reach into the communities.
Yeah, that's just brilliant. And it doesn't hurt to have a couple of fancy named diagnoses like digital dementia. The best of pharmaceutical drugs, have agencies behind them inventing names and initials for things, and that seems to be a very catchy thing in this day and age. And to have a label to be able to place, but a valid one at that, actually probably can't hurt any either. So, will workers, there's something small to take away from that, but actually what Gary's saying here is something very, very significant, and it's making something very significant that we've been pushing a long time, that perhaps others we've felt have, found very insignificant, and, really brought it into the spotlight in a way that will make people raise an eyebrow or just give pause to that. So I love that. And then, so who would you say this app is for overall? I mean, how is it kind of plugged into the practice? You mentioned, parents with athletes, parents with children athletes, so young athletes, that kind of thing. You mentioned the corporate setting. How do you foresee this plugging into different demographics?
Actually, my concept, Frank, is if you're alive and have posture, you should be evaluated with this.
Right, yeah.
Because posture leads to physical problems. Who better than a chiropractor to look at the posture? We started doing this a long time ago. Just point it out to your patients and have your patient download the app. They can monitor their progress. So you put a patient goes on, let's say, a wellness program, a maintenance program, whatever you want to call it. If they're doing this app and this, let's say they have a deficiency that may end up showing up before the patient's next scheduled maintenance visit, that report automatically goes to the doctor. So we literally can catch a potential problem before this patient starts sliding downhill. And the doctor, of course, has the promotional material, all of the information, the posters, so people become aware of it. And you want to know the greatest thing about this, Frank, or one of the greatest things? The doctor isn't the person who has to spend all of their time with this. A staff member can very easily explain this. All brilliant. The doctor has to say is, hey, Frank, did you see this new thing we're doing with MPS? This app is amazing. Talk to my staff about it. And that's where it goes.
That's what I love about it. That's what made me fall in love with it. Just hearing you and Dr. Margello talk about it in the interview you did on his show really just made me, I was just bursting to interrupt your interview and just ask you questions. I couldn't wait, for afterwards to ask you about that. The implications, will workers, of this are just, run far and wide. And I want to make something clear. Whether you use an app like this or not to achieve this connection, the connection still needs to be made. Gary, I see this a lot in my coaching and in my travels talking to docs, far and wide. And it's that a lot of doctors turn down automation at face value and say, no, I don't need that, without understanding that they do need that, whether they automate it or not. It's a function that they're automating, not just the automation for automation's sake. In other words, plugging in a program or a software or an app or something and saying you need it or don't need it based on the fact that it's an app or a technology is nothing in the face of what that technology is designed to do. The function that lies beneath is something that needs to be done. And let's look at what that function is. What is that function but making connections with people, making fulfilling connections with people, good quality connections that are interesting to the person, that are helping them with something in their perception, not ours, but in their eyes, they have to perceive that they are being helped with something that's desirable help to them. And continuing that conversation long enough to bring the person into the mindset that the next step would be to locate cause and to therapeutically correct that condition. And that has to be done willy-nilly, whether you have an app or an automation or not. And that is really the point here. And what has Dr. Fieber done but actually just taken that function and said, here's a way to plug it in and automate it and get people doing it and make that connection and force that connection in. So it's really the function that's important here, and I kind of wanted to really point that out. That's really well done, Gary. My final thing that I want to go over with you is what advice would you give overall to a practice owner? Consider your own track there, that you've gone private practice and then evolving into working with corporate people and getting out there and seeing the needs and wants of these people, and then developing innovations to sort of like bring around using posture to then make that connection and then actually make a more fulfilling connection with people in terms of that function. What advice would you have overall for practice owners on how to really just connect?
Well, and that's a great question, Frank, and you do so well with that, with your company and what they do to get people to become more aware. And really what it's about is communication. I say you have to have conversations with people, but you have to take the time to find out what their true concerns are. So often we are so in a hurry, or automatically, as soon as we open our mouth, we want to educate them about chiropractic and everything else, but we don't listen to them. So the goal is find out what motivates your patients currently. What is it that they're concerned about? Now, you can do it one-on-one. You can do it in a workshop. You can more effectively do it using the internet, using podcasts, using the webinars. You can use however electronic media you decide, or how to do electronic media. But the point is, talk to your patients. Ask them. For example, do your employers ever bring in outside speakers to really help the individual employees so everybody benefits? Well, if they say yes or no, see, I don't care, because my answer is going to be the same thing to them, or my response. So let me ask you a question. Do you think you would enjoy having someone like me come in to help you have more energy, to feel better, to miss less time from work, to have less effects of stress in your life? I mean, unless somebody's really messed up, they're going to say, well, no, that'd be great. Awesome. Who would be the best person to talk to? So you use these types of tools, whether it's a video, whether it's an audio, whether it's whatever you want to use, but connect with people. See, I look at it as a duty, a responsibility to educate people so they can have a better life. That's what we do, folks. And if we don't do it intently and consistently and regularly, we're not going to help people win. And if we don't help people win, we don't win either.
That's a big amen right there, boss. I have to tell you that so aligns with my own philosophy. It's like ridiculous. And Will Workers, if you didn't get that, that's every episode of Will Work for Patients summed up in Dr. Gary Fieber's words. I don't know what to say. Go back and listen to every episode over again and over again and over again until you get that. That's brilliant, Doc. I really, really appreciate that. And I think that's a great recap also, but also a great overall piece of practice advice on which I think people could base their entire practice growth just on that one piece of advice. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And now for the last word. Who gets the last word? I do. After all, it's my show. What should you take away from today's episode? If anything, I'd like you to take to heart one thing. Continue the conversation. You've heard me on my soapbox, on my sister show, Road Rants Radio, right here on Will Work for Patients, maybe in coaching calls, webinars, articles I've written everywhere. I think that's probably the most overused phrase in my catalog. But it's for good reason, and it's certainly not cliche. There are 3 factors at play here: posture, automation, continue the conversation. Those 3 factors at play must be done. Whether you're using an app like Max Performance Solutions or innovations like what Gary Fieber has given to this profession, whether or not you use those things, you need to do those things. You need to accomplish those things. And the overall governing factor is continuing a conversation. I am the rogue screener. They don't call me that for nothing. It means I've tossed every script out the window, and I looked at what really needs to happen with a person to get them into the right state of mind to accept corrective care. And that state of mind doesn't happen in a 5-minute meeting with somebody, face-to-face, outside of the practice, in a very first interaction. A shift in mindset needs to occur, and a shift to getting someone into the spirit of looking deeper into their problem, not necessarily treating it, is really what's up here. And that's what I like about Dr. Gary Fieber and Max Performance Solutions. They fold right into that. And I can tell you right now, this is an app that I believe you need to get every single person in your community using. Absolutely. So continue the conversation any way you can, and you will win in expanding your practice. You want to go from 100-something to 300-something like Dr. Gary Fieber did in his personal practice, what led him to innovate and help other chiropractors do same? Continue the conversation and continue lots of conversations. Gary's only giving you another way to do that. Do that, and I promise you, you will win. Well, Gary, thank you so much for being here. I can't thank you enough. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to hook people up with you, and I'd like to do something a little special here. I don't do this often, but I'd like to sweeten the pot and throw in a little perk myself. I actually want to sweeten the deal for you just reaching out to him and getting people to use this application. How do people sort of reach out to you, find out about MPS, and then maybe, make a connection with you?
All right, Frank, thank you very much. Well, first of all, they can email me at Dr. Gary, Gary, at MaximumPerformanceSolutions.com. They can also go to the website, MaximumPerformanceSolutions.com. And I have no problem giving you my cell phone number. That is area code 612-750-5553. Be more than happy to talk to anybody to see if we can help them.
Fantastic. And you see that he gave you his own personal cell phone number right here on the air. You heard it first. So he is determined to help you any way he can. Let me tell you how I'm going to sweeten the pot. I want you to reach out with him. And if you start working with him in any capacity, even getting your patients or your potential patients out there in your community using this app, and you use it to leverage getting in to corporations or sports teams or family groups or whatever it is, and it should be many of them, to be honest with you, I will sweeten the deal. If you get up and running using this technology in your practice, I will do a screenings mini masterclass with your front desk. It's not the full-blown screening training, but it is a mini master class we do with front desk staff to get them to handle all kinds of things like shoppers and different people who call into the practice, and how to turn that into a screening opportunity and turn it to your advantage. And also, I will throw in this case, helping you plug in Max Performance into that using the app as well. So that right alone, just so you know, is a $500 value there. I will sweeten the deal with you if you interact with Gary and you do start using this application in your practice. Those are the provisions. You can use sort of our code word. It's not a keyword that you're going to type in anywhere, but just mention the word masterclass to Dr. Fieber, and he'll know that you came in from this episode, and we will together, all three of us, will work out how you're going to really win, because that's how much I believe in this. So, Gary, thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to reach out to you. So the website is maxperformancesolutions.com. Reach out to Dr. Gary specifically and directly at drgary at maximumperformancesolutions.com. And he even gave you his cell, and I'll even repeat it, 612-750-5553. Reach out to him. He's in the Eastern time zone. And of course, if you want any further information, you want to inquire about the screenings mini masterclass for your front desk, you can contact me directly at frank@screeningexperts.com, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you about that in any capacity, or if you want to arrange a conference call with myself and Gary, we will do any combination of those things just to get you moving and winning. We're all in this together to do that. So, Gary, thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your wisdom. I have to tell you, first of all, I want to commend you for what you're doing for the profession right now. I love the spirit of it, and I love where you're going with it. And I see it's already spreading like wildfire. I can't even imagine where it's going to go. So I just, again, want to commend you, and I want to thank you so much for just taking the time out on a Sunday that we're taping this, I might add, to get to my listeners as well. I can tell you we certainly appreciate it very much.
Well, you're very welcome, and I thank you for your commitment to this profession. It's very rare that you see this kind of commitment on an ongoing basis, so I do appreciate what you do.
Well, I thank you very much, and it is my pleasure to do it. I have a blast every day doing it, and they don't call me the rogue screener for nothing. All right, folks, you've heard it here first, so take that all away. Go out there and start winning. Please follow us on Instagram at willwork4patients. If you need to reach out, you can reach me at frank@screeningexperts.com or DM me on Instagram at willwork4patients. You can get me through any of those channels. I'll be more than happy to listen to your feedback, to take ideas for guests and episodes that you would like to see here. We've got a lot of great stuff coming down the pike, so make sure you are subscribed and you are listening on a regular basis. We are back with a bullet, folks, so be prepared for lots of episodes, more than you can even handle. And I'm just here to really push it all through because this is crunch time, folks, and we're going to make it collectively as a profession. So, my friends, we've come to the end of a patient-empowering episode. On behalf of myself, my crew, our sponsors, my guest, Dr. Gary Fieber, and the rest of the Broadcast Wellness crew, I thank you so very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another practice-exploding episode of Will Work for Patients. So long.
Sure to subscribe and share. Will Work for Patients has been brought to you courtesy of Screening Experts, bringing unscripted simplicity to chiropractic marketing complexity. Today's episode, copyright Screening Experts LLC, musical score composed and arranged by Frank Sardella ASCAP. For more information, visit screeningexperts.com.